everybody, it's Thursday.
And welcome to this edition of the Night Bite.
Again, I'm Josh.
And I'm Emily. And we are excited to be here tonight with you guys. So thank you for being here. We've had a lot going on, in this past week. So tell us a little bit about it.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, we went from a week and a half ago being in the 40s to now being almost 85 degrees on Saturday coming up. So it's been crazy. I don't know. Their fish are all over the place. Sturgeon started spawning again for a couple days, and then they went back down.
That's crazy.
White bass are starting.
Hold on, though. You're glazing past that. That's a really interesting point that you're talking about. The sturgeon did start spawning again. So Wisconsin, the Wolf River, that run typically comes all at once. Mostly, there's some stragglers and this and that, the whole spawn process is kind of crazy. But this year, with the way that the temperatures went up and down, that happened kind of a few times, on a few different occasions. And Wolf River Cam, they're pretty cool. If you've never checked that out, definitely do. They have a Facebook page, but then the Cam site itself, you can watch all of that. But he, I think, even had a drone out there recently, or maybe his camera. But he was showing was it on the 16th? So just 4 days ago, there was sturgeon back there spawning. That's crazy. Yeah,
and I'm sure they're probably done by now. Just because, once that water gets up into the low to upper 60s, that kind of shuts them off, because they're that low 50s to 60 degrees is kind of their range, and that came and went. So I don't know. It's been kind of crazy. The other stuff spawning is like the white bass, and like they kind of moved up and then they stopped, and then they moved up and then they stopped, and then they kind of went back down, and now sounds like that they're coming back up again. So.
Well, and if you're interested in that, we're definitely going to have some questions with our guest in a few minutes. So hold those thoughts. The white bass is like kind of a huge thing in Wisconsin here. That's a whole lot of fun. So, hold those questions, or, submit them now, and then we'll pull them out when we talk about that. But I mean, as far as our fishing, we tried a few new spots recently. That was kind of fun, kind of scary. But spring is kind of a great time to do that, because you kind of get a gist of where the fish are going to be at. So, we're looking at more shallow locations. Use your graphs, use your fish finders. Look for the warmest water, because that's the kind of thing that fish will seek out. And, look for beds just off those areas. There's a lot of places where you can get dark or stained or cloudy water. But, when fish are shallow, you have a good chance of seeing those beds.
Well, and the people lucky enough to have stuff like down imaging and side imaging, just take a minute and start in like 4 feet of water where you can most likely see the beds this time of year. The water's pretty clear, and just go out. And if you watch your side imaging or your down imaging, you can see beds. There's beds out to 25 feet of water, whether that's bluegills or bass or, what have you. Those beds extend all the way down the slope into different stuff. Whoa. So, Emily, stop touching stuff. But anyway, they extend all the way down, and just check it out, and be mindful. Like our one of our previous guests just recently was saying, like, when you're looking for let's say crappies, this time of year they'll be out staged, and when we say staged for spawning, that could only be 20 feet off of their beds, or it could be out of a drop off or something. And during the day when it warms up, they'll come back up, and then as the night goes on, they'll go back out. And so it's not just because it's spawn time that they're going to be right there. They might be right there when you're there, or they might not. But then it's worth checking either, between spawning and then their staging areas. So.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a whole lot of information. So like if you guys have, it's true. If you guys have questions about that, let us know. If you have questions, other things beyond that, let us know. I'm kind of also laughing and kind of getting distracted because our guest in the corner, is kind of setting up and doing a whole bunch of different stuff. So I'm not sure if he knows that I can see him, but one of the things I'm going to hint at even before we get there is, being a guide, we talked to quite a few guides and they all talk about the amount of work that goes into being a guide, the time that it takes to do that, getting on and getting off the water, it's a whole lot going on. And so with that, we have somebody who is actually just coming off the water. We talked to him even in his truck. So, we really appreciate your time. And let's bring him in. So, Mr. Bluegill, welcome. Thanks for being here.
Hey, Troy.
Hey, guys. Hey, I'm trying to log in on my computer here too, but for whatever reason, it's not allowing me to get mic cam access. So my phone might have to do.
Hey,
wait, there we go.
Well, and as long as you choose one device, because otherwise we're going to get a feedback loop. So it's okay, either one that you choose, but we can hear you pretty good too.
All right. So now we're going to get a feedback. So I'm going to shut my phone off.
Okay. There we go.
There we go. Much better.
That's awesome. So welcome and thank you for being here.
Yeah, we got you right when you're coming off the water.
Yeah, today was one of those days where this warm up is changing things very rapidly, and even from a day to the last 2 days, these fish have gone from sitting on the edges to dumping eggs, and they're spawning really hard right now. We were out chasing white bass on the Wolf, and the females are doing their thing, and it won't take long here. Water temperatures 65, 66 degrees in the river. And that's up 5 degrees from Sunday afternoon. So it goes up pretty quick when you got 80s and almost pushing 90 degrees here, I think, the next day or two. So they're going to do their thing. They're going to get done, and they're going to turn back around and start heading out to the lake. And the nice thing is these fish will stay in the river for probably another week or two, I'm guessing. And it looks like after the next couple of days, it's going to cool back down, kind of more, seasonal temperatures, and that'll help prolong things. But I think the spawn's going to be done here probably the next 2 to 3 days. So if you're looking to get out and chase some white bass, now's the time to do it.
Cool.
Wow. That's, I always kind of tend to miss that white bass run. The timing, just how it always works out. So I always kind of chuckle when it comes through. I might have to get out there. As far as finding a guide for this time of the season, like if somebody was looking for assistance on how to do that, are there still guide times available?
I still have a few days left. The weekends are pretty much all taken care of, but if people can fish during the week, and that's always the best time to come out. I'm sure you guys have some people from Illinois, but I'm gonna kind of stand on my podium here for a second. And I had a group of guys out this weekend. They were with me a couple different days, or fished with me 2 days, and they were from Illinois. And every single boat that was on the Wolf River, and I know you guys have fished the Wolf a ton too, that had zero respect for everybody else, had Illinois plates, stickers on the front of their boat. And I kept telling these guys, I said, the Wisconsin people, there's a few out there that just don't have that etiquette. But the Illinois people, they have zero care about anybody else. And we had a spot all to ourselves, and it was every cast. I mean, we're catching doubles every single cast for a half hour, 45 minutes. And this guy was, maybe 300-400 yards away. And I know he was watching us because these guys were hooting and hollering, catching 2 fish at a time. And this guy comes and anchors 30 feet behind my boat where we were casting. And I said, guy, you can't do that. We've been casting here for, the last half hour, 45 minutes. I know you've been watching us. And now you're going to sit right on top of the spot that, we've been casting to. I said, these guys are probably going to bounce a 1-ounce bell sinker off your boat if you don't move. And they just kind of turned around, and sure enough, one of my guys cast his line right over the top of the guy's boat. The line rubs his ear, and he turns back, and I thought there was just going to be a holy war there for a second. And you got to have some courtesy But the white bass run on the weekends, it's just mayhem. It's like all anything goes, and you can't get away from the crowds, and it's just kind of one of those things that you got to deal with.
Yeah, and that's also something good to bring up is not only respect for other anglers and other boats, but respect for the fishery too. Because when you are catching fish, doubles and triples, like you had a picture of a triple, like just be respectful that there are other people wanting to enjoy the resource, and we want to be able to have enough for everybody. So
yep.
Well,
Yeah,
and I was going to laugh and say something totally different. I was going to say those Illinois boats, as long as it's not an Iowa boat, right? No.
You guys.
I'm kidding. There is a lot of on the water etiquette though, and some of that is tough to learn when you're out of state. So, I hope that some of it is on accident, but I'm pretty sure some of it is not.
No, not these guys. They just don't. Honestly, I just think they don't know. I think they fish once or twice a year, and they come in and they see people catching fish, and that's where they go fish. I just think they're just that far uneducated on how etiquette should be on the water.
Well, I mean that's something that's kind of close to me as Emily and I are fairly new to Wolf River fishing. This is our second full season actually being on the Wolf, because we were honestly a little nervous about bringing our nice boat onto the Wolf because we didn't want to bang it into stuff. And now that we have got that out of the way, now we just bang it into stuff. But there is a learning curve. Yep. It's not like a lake where you have quite a bit of water to go around people and do that. Like, you are limited in some spaces. You have blind corners. You get big groups in tiny spots, and so it is a little bit of a curve. So that's a good point. Is like, maybe it's just if you do know the etiquette, maybe it's just better, or not better, but good of you to just be respectful and just be like, hey, dude, like you said, that's not cool. You're gonna get hit by a sinker, and he almost did, and then he moved, and so
yep. Being on the water as much as what I am, I see almost fist fights. I've seen guys jump into other guys' boats and lose their cool when guys are, just people that don't know how to operate. Today, we almost got hit by a guy today, almost backed his boat right into us. If I wasn't lickety split on the throttle, a guy would have backed right into us. Mm-hmm. And, these people they just don't know. And when you've got that many people out on the water, I think a lot of times too, guys panic and they don't know how to navigate with currents. And a boat goes, left and right, but when a guy tries to back up, when your prop spinning one way, your boat's going to turn really sharp one way, but it's not going to turn very fast at all when you go the other way. And a lot of people don't realize that. And then it turns into a mess, and it's things that you could say I've seen a thing or two.
Yeah.
But that brings up a really interesting point, though, when, you have people who are looking to get on the river, on a safer or, try to get out away from the crowds. How do you, make that distance but still find fish? How do you find those places?
It's time on the water using the electronics. Today was one of those days where every spot that I've been fishing for the last couple of weeks, people pick up on it. And I know the boats. They sit and watch me, and I'll go back and like, oh, yep, those two guys watched me yesterday catch a bunch of fish. They're sitting right on the spot. And I don't say anything. I just wave at them, be nice and ask them how they're doing. And I go on to the next spot. And you go to the next spot. Oh, there's guys that see me fish this spot too. So you got to have a whole bunch of spots in your back pocket to really kind of work through. And, that's a nice thing about growing up on the water and, learning different spots. You can go from spot to spot to spot until you find a good one that there's nobody around. And sure, we could go fish the crowds and get amongst everybody, but I'm just not that type of a fisherman. I would much rather catch 10 fish than 100 fish by myself versus catching 100 in a group of people. So now we have those days where we are that one spot, and then everybody kind of comes in on us. And at that point, as long as they respect our space a little bit, we like putting on clinics and having fun.
So just to digress a little bit in the conversation here, let's let everybody know like a little bit of background of Mr. Bluegill and Troy Peterson. Kind of, we forgot to introduce, like, Troy is a guide here on the Winnebago System.
That's true. We got wrapped up in questions. Normally, our very first question is tell us about yourself. So, can you tell us about yourself and Bluegill Guide Service?
Sure. So yeah, I've been on the Winnebago System. I grew up on the lake, out on Lake Winnebago, just south of Neenah. Been fishing, ever since I can remember walking, I guess, holding a pole, and fishing panfish and, the walleyes, white bass, and that kind of thing. And once I kind of realized that this is something I wanted to do, I kind of got started taking a lot of kids out with, like, big brothers, big sisters, and we'd take the kids out and catch a bunch of fish, and the parents would be jealous, and then pretty soon the parents like, hey, we want to come along next time. So that's kind of how the whole guiding thing that got started. Is like, I'm good with people. People were saying, hey, why don't you go get a guide's license and make some money doing this, and it didn't really dawn on me at first what we had going, but eventually I did that, and then I started doing a lot of walleye tournament fishing, traveling across the country fishing walleye tournaments. And back, I think it was in 2008 when the economy crashed, all our sponsorship money went away. And, from there, I just kind of went back to the guiding full time, and I'll dabble in a few small tournaments and fish with some buddies and stuff like that. But I'm a pretty low key guy. I don't have the tournament ego that a lot of these guys have. And I like staying low key and having fun with a bunch of people. And that's where the guiding comes in.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So, I guess, is it fair to ask, is walleye then your favorite fish or bluegill?
I'd say if I'd have to rank, my favorite fish is chasing bluegills. The big bluegills, that's definitely my favorite. But the walleye is right there. I just like the finicky factor of them. They've got a special place in my heart because they've, basically let me do my job for the last 21 years guiding, and, pays the bills. And I've kind of got a really good respect and, fond feeling for those walleye. So that's pretty much what everybody wants to go catch too. We got one of the best fisheries between Green Bay and the Winnebago System. We've got some of the best walleye fishing in the country right in our backyard.
It's a true story.
That is a really great point. So, when you're on the Wolf River and, I guess, tell us, what are the walleyes doing right now? Can you still go out there and catch them?
Sure. So this year is, believe it or not, this is a normal year. We have water levels that are at normal water levels in the river. The lakes were really low. That was a Corps of Engineer, or the Corps' mess up there. They really screwed that up on the Winnebago System. But the water levels on the Wolf have been pretty normal. The uprun was probably one of the most incredible walleye uprun bites I've ever seen. It didn't matter from Oshkosh all the way up to Shiocton. It seemed like every day guys were just, piling fish in the boat. And what happened is they went in, they did their thing. We had some really warm weather there at the end of March that kind of sped everything up. And, with the low current and the low water, these fish are just nicely taking their time coming back. I'm still hearing guys catching a lot of fish up by, like, Shiocton and New London area. A lot of the females and some of the males are still up there and slowly working their way back down. I've seen in the last 2 weeks, I've seen probably 2 to 3 good batches of walleyes come through Fremont and make their way back out into Poygan. And just in the last few days here, I know some fish have kind of dumped back out into Winnebago. So they're migrating, they're getting back out into the lakes. But without having that super fast current that we need to kind of flush these fish back out, they're just taking their time. And we're still getting some walleyes mixed in with the white bass and stuff like that in the river. And, we're getting quite a few fish out on Poygan. We're getting some nice fish out on Butamore. And like I said, Winnebago now is finally starting to see a bunch of fish. So walleyes are pretty much everywhere in the system, and it typically neutralizes, or, they get into their summer patterns usually by June. And we're pretty close to being right on track for that. So,
excuse me. So, you know, we kind of touched on white bass and now we're talking walleye. And one of the things that really makes me think about is, you know, this Wolf River rig, Wolf River fly. You know, it's kind of a unique thing. Is this something that you use or recommend?
So yeah, and I've got every guide or every person's kind of got their own little twist. I can remember pulling flies, since I've been a little kid with my grandpa. And when you go and you fish across the nation, or everywhere that I've gone, we've all learned different things from different people. And one of the things that I picked up on was, if anybody's ever fished saltwater, are sabiki rigs. And really, I've kind of tied all my fly rigs to match kind of a sabiki rig because they're super easy to cast. And that's what we do a lot. Rather than getting on a bow mount and just pulling up current or down current, a lot of the times what I'll do is I'll find the fish. And I know when these fish sit in these current seams, rather than sit there and go back and forth over the top of them, if you just anchor in one spot and cast them every time, you put 10 times more fish in the boat than having to take the time and go back and forth. And that's where those sabiki rigs really come in handy versus, somebody that's trying to tie a normal fly rig, is that we can cast, 3 flies at a time, super easy. And hence why you see the pitchers catching doubles and triples all the time. And that's way more fun doing that than catching one at a time.
Yeah, and for those of you that don't know, when we're talking flies, we're talking streamers, like 2.5 inch streamers, hair, and around here, the purple seems to be a popular color, white,
Yep.
any of those like natural colors seem to be pretty popular.
Actually, I can probably I don't know if you can see. Here's my kitchen table.
Oh yeah. Tying them up.
It's kind of a nightly ordeal. After each day, you lose a couple rigs and you come back home and you start tying flies and tie enough for the next day. But
so what colors are you tying up then?
So my favorites, pink and blues, purples and blues, purple, white, red and black. But everything I tie always has quite a bit of flashaboo in it. Silver, because these fish, what they're eating right now, especially, is the river's full of river shiners. So they've got that, that purplish, bluish hue to them, or that reflection. They're shiny, and that's what these fish are gouging themselves on. So, match the hatch, tie up those flies. And I always make mine, you can go to all these bait shops, and there's so many guys that tie them, and a lot of times they're too short and they don't have enough hair. Mine are, probably closer to 3 inches long, 2.5 to 3 inches long, and have a lot more hair in them. So they have a much bigger profile. And again, I fish next to a lot of people on a daily basis, and we seem to outfish quite a few of them. And could be just luck, or it could be the fact that we're just doing things a little bit different than what most do.
I mean, like, by this point, the fish pretty much recognize your boat and they just know to come visit, right?
Damn, he's back.
No, but the other age-old question, because you see both ways on the river. So when you have your whole rig set up, you have your flies on there. Do you still put bait on the fly, or is the fly itself the bait?
Nope, the flies, it's all in, just like ice fishing. It's all on how you work the bait. Some people cheat and they'll put live bait on, and to each their own. But we never put live bait on a fly. Now today, for whatever reason, they were not eating the flies very good at all. So what we ended up having to do, and I kind of figured it out, because a lot of times when we get into a spot where I'm marking just tons of fish and they just won't eat, I will go and just slow things down, dumb things up, even taking I always have cane poles in my boat. And when I can see fish sitting underneath my transducer, I whip out the cane poles, figure out my depth, put a small hook on, and just hook a minnow through the eye and let that thing drift down through those schools of fish. If they don't eat that, then I don't know. But if they do eat that, then I know I can at least slow it down and go to just a plain, single hook, still a 3-way rig, and or just like even a crappie jig with a minnow on it, cast it upstream, and then just let that current kind of take it down to them. And once that bait gets in front of their face, if they're going to eat, they're going to eat those minnows. And even those, then though, I mean, there's days where they're not going to eat, and there's nothing you can do to make them.
Yeah.
Well, plus if you can get on a cane pole bite, that's always a lot of fun.
Yeah, you guys fishing crappies understand that.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, honestly, I don't use that enough as a tool. I really got to get into that. But especially on the Wolf River, it really reminds me of the Wolf River rigs, the floats. They have those big, long, are they cane poles? Are they different than that?
Yeah, they're just on all the rafts. It's nothing but just cane poles.
Yeah, that's cool. That's a whole lot of fun. You always see those people out there at night, right as I'm about to go in for the evening, and they're all coming out, and I'm like, dang, I need one of those.
Yeah.
That's what you should offer for guiding next year. You should get a raft.
I've thought about it a lot of times, but it's a pecking order. All those guys have been grandfathered into the spots, and there's really no way for anybody that's new to just buy a raft and kind of be included. You have to know somebody really important to be able to get into some of these places and tie up on people's lands. And that's why the guys that have them, they've been in the family for generations, and you very see any that go up for sale.
So that's another really fun thing. Besides the flies, if none of you know it, a raft is basically like a hard-sided house that's mounted on a pontoon. So instead of having the railing on the pontoon, it's just basically an ice house, like an ice shack on a pontoon, and then there's rod holders on the railing. You put the cane pole in the rod holder, and then you have a three-way that runs a Rapala normally, and a bell sinker on the bottom, and then you just set it on the bottom, and the Rapala just sits down there all night like this, and it's kind of like watching tip-ups in the summertime.
Yep. But when a sturgeon goes through, or you get a batch of fish that come through, it's complete pandemonium. You got to be lickety split. Because a lot of these rafts, when I go up with my buddies on the rafts, we'll have 20 rods on a raft, and a sturgeon can wipe them all out in about 2 seconds. And it's fun when you're on the bend, when fish are coming through, because the guys that have the prime spots, on the down run are all the guys up on the top, and then on the up run are the guys down the bottom. But you always see the bells starting to go, and then all of a sudden, nope, there's next guy, and then pretty soon everybody along the whole bend's just flipping fish out. So it's fun to watch.
That is fun.
Oh my goodness. And that is a really cool part of, Wisconsin culture. And, we kind of laugh about it, but it is really unique to the area. It is a really cool thing. If I can find an abandoned shack, can I commandeer it or something like that?
Pirate Emily over here.
I'm just saying, I want to get in on the action. So if you're watching, you have one of these, let me know.
Those river rats up there, I'm sure if you tried to get on one of those, you'd probably never be found again.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. So the other thing that I've got to ask, especially being Mr. Bluegill, where do you find panfish coming up here?
So one thing I don't do is fish them on the beds. I will go around and kind of look at lakes and just see how the population's doing, but these fish are pretty near and dear to my heart. All these lakes over by me out in Washera County, Wapaka County, Marquette County, these fish I've almost consider my pets now. So I like going out and seeing what lakes have some good fish, so I can kind of prepare for the summer, or more so looking for spots for winter for ice fishing. But a lot of the fish now start coming up, and they're going to start fanning their beds. They're pretty much all sitting on the weed edges right now, and we'll go out a couple times here over the next couple of weeks. But once they get on their beds, I pretty much leave them alone and chase the walleyes.
So then, as far as summer pattern, when do you tend to get back into it?
Usually end of June, right around 4th of July, when these fish get off their beds and start moving out over that deep water, where I can start casting tubes and fishing slip bobbers with leeches and stuff. That's a lot more fun than going up and just raping them. The only time I guess every once in a while, if I get a bug up my butt, I'll go take the fly rod and use a fly rod on the beds or something like that. But I have a hard time even doing that anymore.
Yeah, that is for sure. Plus, sometimes, especially in that river system, those fish are hard to find. They find their way up into shallows and bayous and all that kind of stuff. And some of them you can't even get to. So maybe that's a good thing.
Yeah. The Wolf River, with all the backwaters and like last summer when we had that really long hot spell, fish are, I tell people fish are a lot like humans. What a lot of people don't understand though is, for temperature with fish, and this is just going off of studies that I've, talked to different researchers and biologists and stuff about, but they say 1 degree to a fish is like 10 degrees to a human. So when the temperature drops, 2, 3 degrees, that's like a 20, 30 degree temperature drop for a fish. I don't care if you go outside yourself and it's a 30-degree drop. You're not going to be doing a whole lot. You're pretty much just going to kind of be laying low. And it's kind of the same with the fish. But on the flip side, when the water goes up, 5, 6 degrees in the midsummer, those fish are looking for someplace to cool down. And that's one nice thing about the Wolf River is that you can get into some of these backwaters that still have current coming through, that the water is cooler, but you still have the structure, the weeds, where these fish like to live. And you'd be surprised on some of the fish that you find. We found an awesome perch, a school of perch last year. I think it was like mid-August or mid-July, August, somewhere around there. And it was a dead sea everywhere because it was so flipping hot. So we just started cruising around looking at some of these backwaters, and man, the perch were back there thick, and you just got to kind of go off and do some exploring.
Well, and talk about exploring. One of the things that we've really gotten into is, some of those, do you call them the mid-river fish, and all of that structure, there's so many down trees throughout the entire system. So, kind of find your favorite launch, go on out there. I guess sometimes location makes a difference, but, find those down trees and man, you use the right bait and you never know what you're going to pull up. There's a lot of different options that could come on the end of that pole.
Yep, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, I was thinking about last year, we also used our digging anchors. That was actually kind of fun. That was kind of crazy. Some people are doing like regular anchors but sometimes you get caught in snags and stuff. And so we have like our anchor poles, a shallow water, like anchor system.
Yep.
But that was really good because if you bump that brush, sometimes it scares the fish out.
And that's why it's funny, talk about anchors in the river. I've got the Altera on my boat, and our big walleye boats don't do well with power poles and stuff like that because they're so big and they get so much surface area. But when we're fishing, I can get into a spot, press spot lock on the Minn Kota, and we don't move. And the spot locks now are so incredibly good that it just becomes your anchor. And I had a couple out in the boat. That was last weekend. And they're like, "Where's your anchor?" I'm like, "Oh, it's right here." You push a button, motor goes up, goes down. I hit spot lock, and we don't move. And the guy's like, "I need to get one of those." And that's gonna save our marriage right there. Because he's like, "I'm always yelling at her to put the anchor in, and then she puts it in. She doesn't put it in fast enough, or she puts it in too fast and scares the fish away, and she doesn't have enough rope out." So we get to talking, and lo and behold, we ended up getting them an Altera. And today was the first day they got a chance to go and use it. And I call and talk to them how they did and see how they were doing. And they're like, "We're actually friends on the boat today."
That's actually, I guess, a really crazy thing about being a guide is, you get on the boat with all kinds of different people. And you even get on the boat with people who, don't fish very often. So, I guess this might be a strange question, but do you have, what are the most common mistakes that you see people make?
Oh, well, the biggest thing is, bringing fish into the boat. Now, one thing I do different than probably most guides is I don't care if it's a novice angler, an experienced angler, or just a newbie. When people hire me, they're hiring me for an experience. Typically, we got a brand new boat every year. Not this year. I'm still waiting for mine because of the COVID stuff. But we're putting people in the absolute best equipment that money can buy. I have no problem handing somebody that's never fished before. I'll put a $300 or $400 fishing pole in their hand so they can be like, "Oh my God," and they know because they've seen this stuff on TVs or in magazines, and they're super excited, and that's great. I mean, that's excited to see that they're having a time of their life doing something that they would probably never have a chance to do. And yep, do I lose a couple rods a year? Sure do. It's probably, it's cost of business. But this group of guys from Illinois that we had out, I kept telling them, I said, guys, these rods are designed to be able to pick a fish up. You can hoist it in the boat. You're not going to break the rod. Don't worry about it. But whatever you do, don't get the pole to the boat and then grab the rod 3/4 of the way up and then try and lift it, because it's going to break every single time right there. They're not designed to be able to do that. And you tell these guys over and over. So you see, I'm constantly watching my people, making sure they're not doing anything stupid. And this one guy, every time he'd catch a fish, he'd go and reach to try and grab the rod halfway up. I'm like, hey, no, just lift it into the boat. And he'd put his hands back down. And one time he had the double on. He goes to grab halfway up the rod, and I'm like, no, snap. Oh, darn it all. And he's like, oh, I just bought a pole. What, and that's the frustrating. You just got to laugh. It's frustrating as a guide because you're constantly just telling these guys, and sometimes guys get it. Sometimes, guys will just never get it. That's probably one of the biggest things is just, how people bring fish into the boat. The other thing is just pure, again, not having the respect for other equipment. I get guys that come into the boat, with their kids or whatever, and the kids are going through tackle boxes, and guys are smoking in the boat, dropping ashes on the floor, complete idiocracy things that, you really want to just let loose on some of these people, but you just kind of have that politely say, hey guys, we can't be doing this. You just got to keep your calm and make sure that you're not an ass to them. So as much as some days I'd like to be, I can never treat anybody. I just got to nonchalantly be that guy.
Well, and when you're a guide and when you have a boat and, you kind of expect that people are going to come on it and that some things are going to happen, but that boat becomes, home sweet home. You're really inviting somebody on that trip with you. So, that is a really great point is, to be respectful of all that's going on there.
Well, and a lot of the times the boat's not even, halfway through the season, it's already bought by somebody else. And I'm using their boat for the rest of the season. So, every time we get off the water, the thing gets wiped down, gets cleaned. And my boats, typically, most of the people that buy my boats say they're nicer the day they get them than they come off the showroom floor. So I take pretty good pride in my equipment, and trying to keep things as nice as possible. And then when you have the guys that just don't care, it gets frustrating a little bit.
Yeah.
They don't understand that these boats, everybody, you talk to somebody who's like, hey, what do you think a new, 2075 Pro V with a 300 cost? You talk to these guys, and they're like, 30 grand. I'm like, just for the motor,
Yeah, right.
So, it's kind of one of those challenging things that just doing it so long. I just get a chuckle out of some of these guys.
Yeah. Well, and after talking about all your equipment, I also am interested to ask, what is your go-to fishing rod?
So right now, we're paired up with Paul and Greg Thorne. They are the originators of pretty much doing custom rods for Thorne Brothers way back in the 80s. And just the last few years here, they started a new company, Two Brothers Innovations, and they've got the 2B and Elliott line of rods. And, the Elliots are the absolute premium ones. And I've been instructed by Paul that no clients are to touch those rods, because if they break, they're not going to do anything for me. So I left those be just my own. If I got a good guy, that knows what to do and knows walleye fishing, I'll let him try him, and just so he can, feel the experience. But the 2B rods have really become my favorite. I used to use a lot of the 13 fishing stuff. Still have a lot of 13 fishing rods. They got a lot of really nice stuff. Those NBs. And then some of my old stuff, some of the St. Croix, the tournament, legend tournament elites and stuff like that. What's crazy is those tournament elites compared to these 2Bs, you got a $400 rod versus a $160 rod. I'd put these 2Bs up against those tournaments any day of the week. Paul and Greg did a really nice job with these rods, and they're selling like crazy. But anything's selling this year. If you got a rod and reel in your shop and you got a for sale sticker on it, it's going to go. We've been making a joke that the fishing equipment's become the new toilet paper.
That is, a good point though, because there's been a lot of empty shelves, but even more than that, people really went and bought online, and even a lot of that had been sold out for a long time. So some places have been restocked and some have not. But that is kind of, a crazy thing to navigate. What happens? What do you do when your favorite tackle is, sold out? That's crazy.
Yeah, that's why my garage is its own little tackle shop.
He's tying flies on the kitchen table.
It's not a kitchen table; it's the tying table.
Yeah.
The garage has got all the jig making equipment set up, so we can always go to the garage, and if we run out of some colored jigs or some style jigs, I can quick turn on the pot, pour a bunch, paint a bunch, and be out the next day. And then the kitchen table right now is full of all my fly stuff. So I'm ready for that season to be done, so we can just go out and slip bobber fish for the panfish, or go start casting ripping wraps and baits for walleyes, and doing some trolling, and just kind of switching things up a little bit.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Mm-hmm. I know my hands are going to thank me for not having to clean any more white bass.
That is a lot of work.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. So, for the rest of the white bass run, for walleyes, for panfish later in the summer, can you tell people how to get a hold of you?
The easiest way is if you can remember MrBluegill.com, mrbluegill.com. All my social media stuff is right on my page. They can book trips right through my page. My cell phone's always on. Shoot me a text, give me a call. Facebook, you can find me. I mean, if you type in Mr. Bluegill, pretty much everything's going to come up. There's a lot of stuff out there. So that's going to be the easiest.
Perfect.
That's awesome. Well, and some really exciting stuff to watch, especially for us when it's local. He's kind of peeking at what you're doing and sometimes hit you up. So
yeah, no, we got to get out and go chase some crappies one of these days.
You let me know when.
We'll get after it one of these weekdays. We'll take a day off.
Yep. Yeah, do that, and we'll hook up, and maybe I'll even jump in the boat with you guys, or if my boat gets here in time, we'll go break it in and catch some crappies.
Sounds awesome.
Awesome, yeah.
I've got some really deep water cribs that I think you guys would like to explore and see.
That sounds terrible.
I've got over here. I've got back to back. Trying to think, it was like 2011 or 2012. Just started fishing this one lake. Really used my side imaging to go and find all these deep cribs. And you had a bunch of fish on them, and back-to-back casts, I had a 16 3/4 and a 17-inch crappie. So I know there's big ones in there.
Well, and for people that are watching, they know kind of our PB story. We've mentioned it a couple times, but it's very similar, except for I cast it into a spot and pulled up like a 15.5, and then Emily was so happy. Quote, jealous.
I was so jealous. I said it. I admit it.
I was taking pictures with my fish, and she casted her bobber into the same spot. And then she caught a 16-inch crappie right after me. But
yeah, but it is crazy when they come back to back like that.
It is. Woo! It's pretty fun.
Yeah, and that's exactly. I sat there. I was like excited. Took a bunch of pictures of the fish. Put it back. I'm like, whew, that was cool. Cast the tube back out, and it sank for like 4 seconds, and doop, and reel that one. And it's like, oh my god, not cool.
That's funny.
Oh my goodness, that makes me so excited. So with that, it's Thursday night and the weekend's coming up, and I cannot get on the water until then. So that's coming up quick here. I'm looking forward to that. Mm-hmm. Thank you for being here, Mr. Bluegill. Yep. Thank you, everybody at home, also for being here. It's been a great time. If you have any other questions, leave them in the comments and we'll get back to you. Otherwise, thank you for joining us on this week's edition of The Night Bite.
Night, everybody.